Hi guys, welcome to another video with me, Clarice. In this video, we are going to be delving right into the basics of gouache, and I'm going to show you guys how to create, or first of all, mix the paint, and then second of all, blending the paint on paper without getting streaks like this, just to get a smooth transition from one color to the next or from dark to light, that sort of thing. And that has been inspired from this quick fun little painting that I did of these lemons that I first started off with just blending these beautiful pinks and purples in the background and then layering it on with my subject matter. So, first lesson. Before I begin, I'm going to quickly walk you through all my supplies that I'm using right here and explain my thought process behind it in hopes that it'll be helpful to you. But feel free to go along and do it in a method that suits you best. Maybe you have a different solution for what I am suggesting, so it's totally fine. Before I get into supplies, if you can please hit that like button and hit that subscribe button if you like videos like mine. It really does help my channel grow and I can continue making videos like this for you. Okay, so let's talk about my supplies. I've got my gouache right here, and these are like the gouache pudding cups. This is the set that I purchased from Temu. If you have watched my Temu haul videos, I have 2 of them. This is one of the items I scored from the art haul video. Super excited for these because they're great. I have them listed for Himi gouache, which is also a very reputed brand, and it's listed in the description below. And this way you guys have somewhere to go to if you are keen on getting the pudding cups. For paper, I'm using my Canson XL watercolor paper, and I've just sectioned this off with some tape so we get some nice straight edges. For brushes, I'm going to be using my Princeton Velvetouch, the wash brush in the 3/4 inch, and this is part of the Velvetouch set. I think it's a set of 4 or 5, I can't quite remember right now, but this is where we get to use this wash brush. I'm also keeping the number 8 handy just in case I want to scoop up some paint and mix it on my palette, which brings me on to my next item. This is my see-through plastic little palette with cute little flowers by Lisi Arts. Again, as mentioned before, I am going to be listing all the products in the description below, so feel free to check that out. Okay, I also have paper towel handy for dabbing. So I'm going to put this aside and let's talk about how we mix the color first. Now the reason I have 2 brushes right here is so that I can get a little bit of color with one and then use the other one to mix it. And because I like to use a lot of pastel colors, so you'll be seeing me dip into my white quite a bit, and I don't want to soil my white, so I'll be getting a little bit of the color that I want to mix with the wash. This is my solution. Feel free to add a 3rd brush to that if that suits you better. So I'll use this to get some of the color that I want, and let's go with this blue because I barely use any blue, and I'm just getting just a tiny bit because I want to mix a bunch of white with it. So that's all I have. And then using the number 8, I'm going to get a ton of white. Or here's another trick. If you want to use the other end of your brush, you can also get some white without soiling it. So let's do that. And then for the next color, I can do it with the 2nd brush. So just sweeping in and dragging off. Just got a tad, like tiny bit of blue, and that's okay. So this is how much white I have. And the reason I have so much white, so that when I blend in with my blue, I get more of a pastel color than anything else. Now, one thing about gouache, it works similar to watercolor because it is water-based. You just need a little bit more color and less water so that you get that nice opaque look. Then you can layer on with your subjects, and yeah, so a little bit more forgiving than watercolor itself. You do need a little bit of water, so what I'm going to do is just dipping just the edge of my brush, I'm going to come back and add some water to it. Okay, so just like this beautiful opaque consistency that you see right here, this is what we're going to be using to start off with our first color. Actually, I'm going to use this brush, take a little bit of that lighter blue and just mix some of that in, because this is almost like a white. And I would like there to be just a little bit more of a cornflower or cobalt bluish sort of tone. Mixing it nicely. And once we are happy with the mixture, make sure it's integrated nicely in, we will get to painting. So I've zoomed in on my sheet so you can see that much better and clearer. And here we go, we're going to lay down our first strokes of color. So I've got that beautiful consistency, great pastel-y blue. Using my wash brush, we're going to go left to right. And you can just see how it's got such an opaque lay. And that's because we had that first stroke full of color. I'm going to get a little bit more, because look at these dry strokes right here. This is your telltale sign that you need more color. I can add more water to this, but what will happen is it'll give me white stains in between, which will indicate an uneven lay of color, kind of like what we have happening over here at the top. If you notice the lines, the light lines happening in between. If you're trying to go for that look, absolutely stick with it. But if you're looking for a nice solid set, a solid block of color, then this is what you need to be doing. And the beauty about this is I love the idea that you can actually go back up and add more paint. So I'm going to get a little bit more color. What I did was I just covered up my gouache so it doesn't dry off quick. And getting a little bit more of that white, mixing it in, just a little dab of water to sort of blend that in with my paint. And we are continuing on downward. You can also use your round brush to paint if you don't have a wash brush like this. It's just going to be more strokes for you to achieve this full coverage. Another solution is you can always make smaller squares, and then this way you're finishing things quicker. So I'm really pressing down to fill in all these little nooks and crannies of white that I see here. And there we go. We have painted our first lay of color. So this is going with just the one color, adding in a little bit of extra white at the bottom, and I'm kind of going at the top right now. So it might not be as consistent in terms of color or hue, but it's good enough for an exercise of figuring out how gouache works, how it mixes, and how it comes down on paper. So we'll allow this to dry, and while we're allowing this to dry, let's move on to our next bit of color. All right, so for this second block right here, we're gonna move on and get a little bit of purple and then mix it in with the white. So I'm gonna get my white first, just like that. And I don't mind adding it to my little bit of blue, baby blue that I have on there. Then I'm gonna get just a little bit of purple, bringing this back on screen so you can see. Just using the side of my brush to sort of get some purple. Got a little bit extra. But the beauty of mixing is that you can always leave some on the side before you go ahead and this is what I mean by leave some on the side. So like drop some over here, and then whatever's left on my brush, I'm just going to go ahead and mix that in. And I can always add more if I need to. So now getting a little bit of water, mixing that in. And this is a beautiful mauve. Love it. Just the tip, the side of my brush, mixing it in. Love this consistency as well. And now we can go ahead and paint. Rest my thing there. I'm going to start from the bottom and go upward. Such a smooth lay of color. The whole point, I think the most enjoyable part of this is adding the color and just watching those gorgeous bright shades get on paper after you've done the hard work of mixing to get to that right consistency. Notice all these white spots in between. Again, you can dip the side, just the tip of your brush to the side, get a little bit more color, add it on top, and progressively make your way upward. And that is all there is to it. At some point, if you wanted to make this a gradient, just to sort of try different colors like I did at the top, you're doing the exact same thing that I have done here. You're just adding a second color halfway through. Beautiful. I love this color. So we're going to allow for this to dry up, and then I'll show you guys what this looks like. While we're waiting for that to dry, we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of two-tone gradient style mixing here. So same idea with the one that we used, except this time around we're going to be adding a second color midway. So again, I like to use my whites. So for the first color, I will use the plain pink that I have right here. So using the side of my brush helps to sort of that much, and let's mix that in here. Beautiful, gorgeous pink. Once I finished painting my top half of this little swatching sheet with pink, I'm gonna throw in some white. Just dipping the tip of my brush in water, bringing it back on here and doing some rigorous mixing in. Get that nice opaque color. Get a little bit more color. Perfect. And now we start. So same thing like we did in the previous one. We're just sort of going left to right, right to left. And then about halfway down is where we sort of allow it to just be as is before we get in some of that white mixed in with the pink. So kind of like around here. Okay, so I'm going to wash off my brush because this is where this would be helpful, and then getting some paint, some white. I'm gonna get some white and add it to our pink. So there's the white. I'm gonna mix it onto the side here so we have control over how much pink we are adding on. Dipping to get some water. I know I have a ton of pink on my brush as well, so I'm trying not to integrate it completely into my little pink well here. Okay, so this is good enough, and let's start. I'm going all the way down. It's going to be a bit hard to do. And this is where you are now sort of going back and forth a few times to really make that mix in. So I'm just washing off as much color as I can from my brush on the side. And then we're going back in. The top portion has sort of dried up already, but you want to have that nice smooth blend in. So water definitely helps with that. And here you go. We have our blend. How pretty is that? Okay, so let's get back to our previous painting to see how that's dried up and compare it to our little gradient here that we have going on. If you really notice how more consistent the coloring is on these two at the bottom as opposed to these strokes at the top here, especially at the top two. This was my first time trying it out, and this, what happened here is I've got more water and less color, and so that's why you see these sort of whitish lines in between, and it's not a nice solid lay of color. It sort of gets better at the bottom here and here, but this is where I nailed it. Well, when I say nailed it, I got it as close to being solid as possible, because mind you, I did have to mix color again, and so there was some strokes that look slightly darker, but I guarantee you this is a lot more solid than it is up here. And then last but not least, let's look at our dark to light gradient, and this is what that looks like. So beautiful. It's all about the mixing and the consistency, and when you go in, water is your friend here when you're trying to blend things in. You can get some really beautiful darks and lights happening. I can see how this can work for our flowers and such, but this is the first exercise in how to get started with your gouache. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Guys, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe button, and let me know if you have any requests for what you would like to see happening with gouache as we progress on in this series with me. Thanks again for watching, guys. Make sure you tag me in your work if you end up doing this, and if you have any questions at all, let me know. I am on Facebook and on Instagram, so check you guys next week. Bye.